Hi, I'm going to learn a beautiful idea with you from Pirkei Avot, chapter 2, Mishna 2. First, I'll read and translate the Mishnah, and then I will discuss one part of it with you to try and understand a fundamental question in Judaism, how to balance Torah study with work. So the Mishnah in chapter 2, Mishnah 2 states, Rabban Gamliel, beno shel Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi Omer. Rabban Gamliel states, Yafeh Talmud Torah im derech eretz. It is ideal to combine Torah study with an occupation, shegiat shnehem mishkachat avon, because together they will push off sin. V'chol Torah she'ein ima malacha, and all Torah study that is not combined with an occupation, sofa b'tela v'goreret avon, in the end will fail and will lead to sin. V'chol ha'oskim im hatzibor, and everyone who works with the community, yehu oskim imaham l'shem shamayim, should work with them for the sake of heaven. Shezchut avatam mesiatam, and the merit of their forefathers will help them. V'sidkatam omedet la'ad, and their righteousness will stand forever. Va'atem ma'ale ani alechem schar harbe ke'ilu asitem, and I will raise upon you great reward as if you did it. So we have seen that Rabban Gamliel states that Torah study without an occupation will in the end fail and lead to sin. How can this be? Surely there is nothing more important than the study of God's Torah, but his advice is to combine the two of them together. There is a separate yet connected, fascinating discussion in a different Gemara, Brachot 35b. There, Rabbi Yishmael claims that a person should combine Torah study with an occupation. As I've once heard it put, what's a segula, a sign for earning a living? Get a job. However, in that same Gemara, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai asks, if one occupies himself with earning a living full-time, when will he have time for studying Torah? Rather, his advice is to occupy yourself with learning Torah, and your livelihood will be taken care of for you. On this, Abaye, generations later, stated that many did according to Rabbi Yishmael's advice to combine earning a living with Torah study and was successful. And many followed Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's advice to focus primarily on Torah learning and were not successful. Clearly, the Gemara is telling us that however noble it may be, it's simply not practical to spend all of one's time studying Torah. We can't shut ourselves off from the outside world completely. This is what our Mishna in Pirkei Avot means when it says that Torah study without an occupation will in the end fail and lead to sin. However, the Gemara there in Brachot 35b goes on to point out that previous generations had made Torah study their number one priority. Yes, they had jobs, they worked, they engaged in the outside world, but the thing they cared about most and they focused on the most was Torah. Sadly, the Gemara states this wasn't the case for later generations. They went so far as to find loopholes, for example, to carry the produce into their houses through the roof in order that they weren't obligated to give a portion of it to charity. The Gemara is therefore teaching us an important lesson. The ideal way is to have a balance. You can't spend all day and all night locked away studying Torah. But equally, you can't only think about worldly pursuits. The ideal is to have a balance, to work for a living, to be part of society, but always to remember the focus is God's Torah. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai himself spent 13 years hiding in a cave, fearing Roman persecution. He lived the most basic of existences and spent his time learning. However, this lofty goal is unachievable for all but a very small number of people. Throughout history, there have been many who have attempted to shun the pleasures and problems of the outside world. The 19th century American philosopher Henry David Thoreau embarked on his simple living experiment, stating, "I went into the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life." But God does not want us to shun the world. He wants us to engage in it, but in the right way. This balancing act is a dilemma in our lives. We need to remember that we shouldn't ignore the world around us. We should pursue worldly occupations, but we should also study God's Torah. And remember that that should ideally be the focus. I hope that we can try to strive for this balance each in our own individual way. Thank you for listening and have a great day.